Hello everyone. Can you hear me? Is the sound good? Let me know how y'all doing. And Shayna, thank you so much. Welcome to the live stream. Please subscribe, join the channel, buy Rebecca some coffees. Please follow Rebecca. Oh my God. Shayna, you're so amazing. Do everything she says. Thank you so much for your support. How y'all doing? I actually I want to see that you guys can hear me before I really start talking about. There is so much to cover today when it comes to Lebanon. I did pull out some historic sources and information for you all. And to be honest, let me see, how did I name the video? That's what I'm curious about. How did I name the live? Because in my head it was like, Lebanon is kind of dead, but it died a long time ago. And I kind of want to talk about how exactly Lebanon died. What was Lebanon? What happened to Lebanon? Oh yeah, I call it Lebanon, the collapse of the Christian nation and the upcoming war with Israel. Yeah, so let's be honest, it kind of collapsed already. Oh, there are new good news. Good news from Germany. Any who wants to become German citizens, they have to declare that Israel has the right to exist as a nation to gain citizenship. Sounds amazing. Thank you for your support, the Uralic tribes. Somebody said Lebanon died in the 70s and 80s. That's true. So, even though I thought of starting with saying Itkadal v'Itkadash Shmei Rabbah, I'm just kidding. I'm not. They don't worth the Kaddish. But you know, at least like a ner zikaron, like a memory, in memory of Lebanon. So I'm gonna light it up. It was nice. It was a good try, Lebanon. Not gonna lie. If you take it really far, then Lebanon, if you talk about the Phoenicians, right, then they gave us the writing system. Lebanon used to have, it used to be the pearl of the Middle East, the Paris of the Middle East. And they had the very successful banking system that was kind of like Switzerland style, just for the Arab world. It's all dead now, but anyway, I think here, in the memory of Lebanon, the Phoenicians, and everything that they used to be. I want to light this candle. I wish I should have brought like this thing doesn't work. This thing, like, I wish I would have brought some like, like speech, like the full. No, come on, what's the English word? Matches. Thank you so much for giving, Govan, for giving a gift, a membership gift. Shayna, Avigdor, your family? Yes, that's my father. That's my dad. So here. Hi, Dad. I asked him if he wanted to come to one of my videos, but he said that he doesn't feel like his English is enough. But I told him, like, you don't need a really good English to make comments about stuff, but he disagreed with me. You guys, why can't I'm trying to light that candle in the memory of Lebanon, but the candle it doesn't want to light up. Also, I guess the problem is with this thing, it doesn't want. Maybe I should like find a match or something. I feel like at this point that I'll be faster in lighting my room up than actually managing to light this candle up. I also thought about like doing it, like starting with the darkness and everything, having a official funeral for Lebanon. But, the more I thought about it, the more lazy my mind became. So this is what the compromise is. Uh, Dylan, John, Lebanon is still alive. I disagree. It's definitely not alive at all. It might get revived, you know. Who knows? Like the relic, I think Lebanon is still about 30% Christian. Yeah, it's unclear, but even so, like it's kind of dead. Eh. Oh, is the mic bad? Something not is it working bad? Somebody's saying. Or is it because the lighter is like right. So actually, how much do you guys know about the history of Lebanon? Sky High Lebanon, isn't that the country that blew up its capital a few years ago? Yes, their ammonia deposit exploded, and that was devastating, to be honest. Oh, the lighter is causes the mic to mess up. Yeah. Matthew, is that who is it? Tell David Wood to help raise funds for a new mic. Yeah. Yes, definitely. Okay, you guys, let's start with the nitty-gritty. So I don't know if you guys are aware about the situation right now, but we're gonna go to war in Lebanon, and probably like the plan is some sort of a ground invasion and actually like capturing Lebanon. If we talk about Lebanon, so we have the Litani River, which is kind of the south. After Israel withdrew last time, or maybe after Lebanon withdrew the first time, Israel withdrew the first time from Lebanon, and the second time from Lebanon, there was like supposed to be a guarantee that between the south would be unarmed, that Hezbollah will not be there, and it was something that was supposed to be guaranteed by the UN. But of course, the UN does absolutely nothing. So the whole south of Lebanon is filled with rockets that are aimed at Israel. And the best part is that if you hear like the villages that are in the south, their favorite places to place a rocket, like it's not rockets, it's like rockets, missile launchers. Their favorite places to place the missiles launchers are, of course, inside and around churches and Christian villages and just villages in general. But so there are a lot of Christians in the south of Lebanon complaining about that and like just praying because they know what's coming. But of course, it doesn't matter how much they cry. It's not like the Hezbollah would care about like the population there. They had been massacring them themselves for a long time. So I want to go back a little. And so let's do like a deep dive into history and see. I've brought some videos to show you. Can you hear the video? Is the video good? And I'll try to light up this candle in the meantime. Maybe I should like find something else to burn. All right, any questions before we start? All right, I don't see anything. Let's go. So, a chronology in depth of events which reflect the United States' determination to help preserve the sovereignty and integrity of peace-loving nations. Now, remember, let's just watch it and
The spectacle of accelerated activity, Navy ships such as the carrier Leyte on special alert as a result of the Mideast crisis. It was the Leyte which was ordered from a New York pier to take on emergency supplies. Shore patrols rounded up officers and men on liberty, their leaves canceled. Some were watching a ball game at Yankee Stadium when the public address system broadcast.
You gotta love this, like my old radio voices. I'm gonna stop from time to time. I don't know if it's gonna get like flagged or not, but this is. Can you guys guess like how old that is? It's pretty old.
Passed the orders for them to return to their ship immediately. At Cherry Point, North Carolina, United States Marines are ready to be airlifted to staging areas in the eastern Mediterranean. Around the world, the entire U.S. military establishment likewise goes on alert. This is preparedness in the face of encroachment, an around-the-clock vigil not designed to create hysteria, but rather to show this nation's interest in the affairs of others. We who seek no booty or territorial gain, but ready to respond to the call of smaller nations threatened with violence which cannot await deliberations at the conference table. This is outlined to the Washington press, the rush of events which saw Iraq shattered by revolt, Jordan threatened with similar violence, and an urgent plea from the President of Lebanon to the United States.
Oh, I forgot I muted myself, so you guys won't hear my attempts to light up this memory candle in the memory of Lebanon. But in fact, we can see that it died even before the 70s. Because, yeah, I think that's from the 50s. You're coping. Where are you saying, why can't I see your comment? Hey, come on, come up. This one is working. Why is not this one? Okay. Kissing your F50 for ego by compliments your makeup. I don't understand, but thanks for the money. Yeah, it is 1950s. You're gonna see Eisenhower in this video. I didn't actually I don't have the whole thing here. A lot of those sources that I'm showing you when I'm showing you random clips is because the video, like you have no idea how much work I put to collect all kind of cool stuff to make the 2.5 hour long anti-Semitism video. And in this part as well, like there is a comment made by Eisenhower, which really put me like, I was like, opened my eyes. I was like, oh, they knew, those assholes knew what's coming a long, long time ago, and they lied.
President. For a show of U.S. support, enabling Lebanon to survive hostile forces which had been set loose there. In Iraq, the hand of violent death fell upon King Faisal and his uncle, the Crown Prince Abdulillah. They are shown here as history will remember them, loyal to country and people, holding firm to democracy's ways while disloyal troops were plotting the coup which resulted in murder and aroused new fears in the West. For this was the tide of Arab nationalism in flood, peoples incited to rebellion under the banner of Nasserism, and no doubt the Kremlin is jubilant.
It's interesting to me because I think, was it yesterday that I was listening to, the Traveling Clad. By the way, we had a collab and the video is on his channel, is up on his channel, of us just walking down we went to the beach in Tel Aviv. And yesterday when he did a live and somebody called in and he talked about that before Islamization comes Arabization, actually. Or it comes kind of hand in hand. To me, it's interesting because also, the slogan from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Well, originally it was min mia al-mia Palestine Arabia or min mia al-mia Palestine Islamia. So he's talking about in Sudan, I think Somalia as well, and even in this Saharan, like the south of Morocco, you know, there is the Saharan part. There is like a forced Arabization and not just Islamization. So yeah. Copenhagen, is it a good idea to go to the north before Gaza is done? It's a good idea to go to the north when it's the best time to attack the north. So, you know, it's like when you have the best opportunity to strike them in a way that would hurt, that's the best time. And that it depends on many different kind of, you know, it's not something anyone can predict. So the best time to go north is when you have the best chance at being impactful, I think. Mm-hmm. Here, there anything else? Okay, I'm going to continue.
Only 2 months ago, Egypt's President Nasser signed a statement committing him to all major planks of Soviet foreign policy. The Baghdad Pact retains the loyalty of its 3 remaining Muslim countries, Turkey, Iran, and Pakistan, and dramatically from Iraq's neighbor Jordan, through its King Hussein, cousin of the martyred Faisal, comes a call for help to which Britain responds. Crack paratroop units such as these come from Nicosia, Cyprus in British Air Force transport planes. Reported on the move too is gasoline to ease Jordan's critical fuel shortage, a massive sea and airlift of gasoline from an oil-rich British island in the Persian Gulf. And now, Lebanon. First pictures of U.S. Marines swarming ashore from a Navy task force, the first such U.S. operation on foreign soil since Korea. They come under Article 51 of the United Nations.
You guys have a lot of interesting comments here, I'm seeing. Let's see. So random. I love the transatlantic accent. Yeah. All right. Okay. You guys are moving way too fast. Talking about everything. But yeah. Okay. So that's the stop moment here because I don't want my my stream to be stopped.
Charter, which upholds the right of individual or collective defense until the Security Council has taken measures necessary to maintain international peace and security. Good-natured civilians view the arrival of the Leathernecks at the landing area near Beirut. As fighter cover is carried out, the 90-degree heat encourages an ice cream vendor to move in closer. Everyone quickly gets the idea the Marines mean business, but they won't bother anyone unless the trigger-happy rebels start their sniping.
It's interesting how this the same psychology of that is applying. Like you can predict the way the United States are gonna present themselves, like every time, even the way they're acting now, the way they were acting against the Nazis as well. Like right now, like the speeches and everything is so similar, but they're not doing anything still. Like it's amazing, like how nothing changes really.
The Beirut airport, just inside from the landing area, is reopened to business. A time-honored phrase is worth repeating. The Marines have the situation well in hand in Beirut. And back in the U.S., in the Norfolk, Virginia area, the carrier Antietam is taking on aircraft. And particularly significant, according to observers, is the loading of helicopters flown up from Cherry Point, North Carolina, to land directly on the flight deck of the carrier. The Marines in Lebanon or on ships in nearby Mediterranean waters have everything to move or fight with, except enough helicopters. So now they'll apparently get the welcome whirlybirds, which you'll remember did Herculean duty in Korea. Here are more Marines, reinforcements for those already in the Mediterranean.
It's interesting, it was all done in a time where the United States official policy, by the way, towards Israel is to pretend that it doesn't exist. Like, I swear was their official policy. And it looks like that, I wouldn't be surprised if back then, like, the hope would have been that the Lebanon would be what is Israel now. Like, they had this obvious preference to work with Christian nation rather than a Jewish nation. But I think at those times, right, the official policy was more of like, let's ignore Israel's existence. But I think because Lebanon proved to be such a failure, they had to compromise with and actually cooperate with the Jews.
While the United Nations continues debate with pros and cons on the presence of United States forces in Lebanon, the world is reminded in the words of the U.S. Commander-in-Chief that action was taken only because of the violation of the principles of the United Nations Charter.
There can be no peace in the world unless there is fuller dedication to the basic principles of that great document. If ever the United States fails to support these principles, the result would be to open the floodgates to direct and indirect aggression throughout the world. We are hopeful that the action which we are now taking will both preserve the independence of Lebanon
I forgot to turn my mic on. That's Eisenhower, I think. Unless I'm like, I'm really tripping and my memory is not long, like, but because I told you, like, all those clips are from when I've made my video on anti-Semitism. So it's been several months now, more good amount of months now. So that's Eisenhower, and he was a good Christian Republican. And now, he liked ignoring the fact that Israel exists in general, and but I think Lebanon was important to them.
and check international violations, which, if they succeeded, would endanger world peace. We are striving for an ideal which is close to the heart of every American, and for which in the past many Americans have laid down their lives. To serve these ideals is to serve the cause of peace, security, and well-being, not only for us, but for all men everywhere.
Oh, I forgot to. Wait, I think, is that the clip I wanted to show? Wait, once more.
Pros and cons on the presence of United States forces in Lebanon, the world is reminded in the words of the U.S. Commander-in-Chief that action was taken only because of the violation of the principles of the United Nations.
Support these principles, the result would be to open the floodgates to direct and indirect great document. If ever the United States fails to support these principles, the result would be to open the floodgates to direct and indirect aggression throughout the world. We are hopeful that the action which we are now taking will both preserve the independence of Lebanon and check international violations, which, if they succeeded, would endanger world peace. We are striving for an ideal which is close to the heart of every American, and for which in the past many Americans.
I did, as you can see. This is in the memory of Lebanon. What are you saying? Let me see. Eisenhower wasn't a Christian. He was raised as Jehovah's Witness, which is not Christian at all, and later in life was not practicing. Is it not Christianity then? Well, maybe I should open up Eisenhower, see what his story was. Let me see. Eisenhower. Nickname was American military statesman, 34th president from 53 to 61. Oh, his mother became a Jehovah's Witness. Eisenhower, however, belonged to no organized church until 1952. He graduated from West. So what happened in 1952? Did he join like a certain Christian thing? I don't know. Let me see. I saw others. Thank you, Kier Johnson, for your support. 2 years old, always love Israel. Coping, you think Lebanon can go in civil war against Hezbollah? That's the ideal, I would say. But also maybe now like they're completely under Hezbollah's thumb. I don't think they have any ability to really operate against them. Okay, let's continue, shall we? And I don't know even if I missed the point where it talks about like...
action which we are now taking will both preserve the independence of Lebanon and check international violations, which, if they succeeded, would endanger world peace. We are striving for an ideal which is close to the heart of every American and for which in the past many Americans have laid down their lives.
Yeah, I think this... Okay, we're close to the ideal of which... I also feel like it's pretty clear that... I don't know if it's in this clip or a different clip, but there was a certain point... This is why I'm going back and forth with Eisenhower, because I remember hearing him say something where it's like, okay, I'm having a deja vu because this is exactly how they were talking about the Nazis. So they definitely knew what's coming. Right, now I have 2 clips from Lebanon. By the way, if you guys don't know, like... Okay, let me... before I go to that, there's Lebanon, the kind of the political system in Lebanon, where you have this very like like every part of the parliament that's supposed to be like this percentage of Christians, this percentage of Muslims, Druze, things like that. So I want to compare like I think it's the Muslim prime minister versus the Christian president or vice. I'm only looking for like, I'm kind of curious about the Lebanese political structure, just so I can claim like with confidence that this is the Christian president, or is it the Christian like, you know, prime minister? What's exactly who is who? I don't know. It's not that important. Because I want to show you guys 2 clips. One of the Christian representative. I'm gonna start with him, and then the Muslim representative of Lebanon.
he can't. Tomorrow or after tomorrow, when the
Okay, also reminder, like those are like clips that I took when I was making my anti-Semitism videos, so it's been some time. So I when I collected it before now, I just like based on memory. I didn't go through everything. So
commandos,
I hope it's the right clips, but I think it is.
Palestinian commandos cross over Lebanese territory, I give Israel excuse to attack, and Lebanese army he can't stop the Israel attack.
Don't you really have to make a choice between the security of the Lebanon and support for the Palestine cause?
I prefer the security of Lebanon first. I want to help the Palestinian commandos. I want, but I can't in these circumstances. And
yes, but what I'm saying is, isn't there a choice to be made? Either our first concern is the security of Lebanon, or our first concern is to support the Palestinians, which must bring with it the risk of war for the Lebanon.
So I repeat, my obligation
Yeah, remember, this is a Christian talking. The obligation is towards the country of Lebanon.
Chief of National Bloc, Lebanese Party. My duty as member of parliament and defend first sovereignty and security from Lebanon, and then I have a duty to help Palestinian commandos.
But aren't the two contradictory?
No, contradictory. I refuse to make de mettre en péril le Liban.
To endanger the Lebanon.
Now let's go to our other beautiful representative of the Lebanese.
Not in the least to me.
That's like kind of explains why they got into the civil war to begin with.
It is just an episode in the present crisis. No one can tell yet what will be the effect of it, but one can't say that it has solved any question.
What really would you say the role of the Lebanon is to be in the whole Palestine issue?
Well, I take it from your question that you think, like others, that the role of the Lebanon could be different to the role of the other Arab countries.
I love it. There is no Lebanon in the Arab mindset. There is no Lebanon.
Well, it has been hitherto, hasn't it?
It has been. There have been many efforts to make it more so. But ultimately, it can't be. Lebanon, as you know, is an integral part of the Arab world. And it's...
It needs to be part of the Caliphate, of course. The main reason I collected those videos to begin with is to try to understand how long did the United States know about the real agenda of the Muslim world. And I learned that not only that did they know, they always knew. They always knew it. It was something that the leaders have always known. Another part is that Obama brought up the story that Thomas Jefferson had the Quran in his library as a positive thing, as if to show that Thomas Jefferson appreciated Islam. But in reality, when the forefathers were contemplating about the freedom of religion, Islam was the one religion that really made it hard for them. It was the challenging religion where how can we allow Islam? This is why Thomas Jefferson had the Quran, because the dilemma was how can we have that freedom of religion if a terrible religion like Islam exists?
Context, historically, geographically, economically, it is part and an integral part of the Arab world. So it has to be involved in whatever the Arab world is involved in.
Well, there are people, of course, who are trying to keep Lebanon out of involvement with Israel, and we've seen an aspect of this in the recent crisis, trying to keep the commanders
This
out.
has been going on for a long time, but this has been foolish, and it caused much of the present crisis. One could have avoided many aspects of the present crisis had one been realistic enough and realized, as I say, that Lebanon could not escape its fate.
Well, when you say its fate, this, of course, is just what many people are afraid of. Are you yourself prepared, if necessary, to sacrifice the whole safety and perhaps even sovereignty of the Lebanon for the Palestinian Arab cause?
It's not that I or any other person would like it or would not like it, but as I say again, Lebanon is involved. Lebanon is threatened directly. Perhaps something you always do not fully realize, that every Arab anywhere is deeply in fear of Israel, the continuous aggression of Israel, the perpetual aggression that has no limits. By experience, we have learned through the last decade or two, through the last 50 years, that the mere presence of Israel is an aggression.
So you're in favor, are you?
So to me, it was so baffling when I realized that the Thomas Jefferson knew what Islam is. A lot of leaders had known what Islam is, that it is a dangerous ideology, and yet, it was such a common knowledge among those who were educated on the matter when it comes to geopolitics, and yet they lied. They lied about what Israel is. They lied about everything because they knew the truth the whole time, and they never thought that Islam is the religion of peace. They always knew the problem is Islam, and yet they lied the whole time. They lied about it.
Of letting the commanders operate here as fully as they would like to?
Again, I answer this question factually. The Palestinians are here in thousands, in hundreds of thousands.
In the camps, you mean?
In the camps. We have had them in the camps now for about 20 years as refugees. Those refugee camps have turned overnight into militant camps.
And he is proud of that. He is proud of that. That's amazing.
Call them guerrillas. They call themselves Palestinian Arabs who want to regain their homes. And nobody can stop them from doing this.
Yeah, nobody can stop them. So let's jump forward as Chetan Khudari. Thank you so much for your support. Europe should learn once demography changes too much, you will not be able to fight this Islamist. Also, thanks for taking time to explain this. Well, thank you so much for your support, really. It really, really helps me, you guys, whenever you support me like that. And I want to jump forward a little bit because I don't know if you guys know Leo Karse, but he made a video after there was a proposal to accept Gazan refugees by Europe. So as a response, he made a video. So the second half is the part I want to talk about. He does talk about Jordan as well, but the other next 5 minutes are about Lebanon. So let's take that and now look what's the result, right? It's amazing because this is before. This is the clips I showed you is before the real catastrophe that happened to Lebanon happened. So let's see what's the after. What's the nowadays what we know. Yeah.
Israel retaliates, cry. So
The Swiss Nazi banker Francois Genot funded the PFLP and PLO Fatah. There was a lot of cooperation, like the whole thing, like there was a lot of cooperation with the Nazis. And the Nazis that, people that stayed Nazis after even when it wasn't cool anymore. They just rebranded it to be anti-fascist, like Antifa did. Antifa is the day after the Nazism and the fascism fell, it was, I don't remember who, but was already a writer that wrote, hey, the next time they rise up, they're going to claim to be anti-fascists. The next fascists are gonna be those who claim to be anti-fascists. Antifa, for example, are literally called anti-fascist, and they are fascists.
After the Six-Day War, Israel occupied the West Bank, forcing the Palestinian militants across the border into Jordan, the country, not the glamour model. From here, they launched attacks on Israel. This obviously wasn't ideal for Jordan, as it destabilized the country in two ways. It brought Jordan into direct conflict with Israel, as Israel retaliated, fighting against a combined Palestinian and Jordanian military. And there was now a Palestinian army inside Jordan that threatened the Jordanian state. As the Arab world started pouring military aid to the Palestinian militants in Jordan, they grew in power and arrogance. An observer describes them driving around Amman, which is a city in Jordan, in jeeps with loaded weapons, extorting money from locals, disregarding rules and army checkpoints. There were kidnappings and violence against Jordanians, even against the military. The future
This is what happens there when the whole world tells you how special and unique you are and how just your cause is. I told this story before about the nice Palestinian from Judea and Samaria that worked with friends of my family named Mahmoud. How he saved money up and bought a house and was so excited to get married. But then when they decided to bring the Oslo terrorists back home, he was so excited to meet up his uncle, which was fighting for the Palestinian cause. But his uncle, when he came over, he said, hey, we are fighting for this holy mission. So he took away his money, his savings, and his house, and he couldn't marry anymore.
Jordanian Prime Minister Zaid al-Rifai described the Palestinian militants killing a soldier, beheading him, and playing football with his head in the area where he used to live. It didn't stop there. Palestinian militants tried to overthrow the Jordanian monarchy. They hijacked planes and tried to assassinate King Hussein of Jordan, and later succeeded in assassinating the Jordanian Prime Minister Wasfi Tal. Jordan had given the Palestinians refuge, and the Palestinian militants in return tried to destroy their country. Pushed to breaking point, King Hussein ordered the Jordanian military to attack the Palestinian militants. Syria sent 10,000 troops to help the Palestinians fight Jordan, but the Jordanian military triumphed, and eventually the Palestinian militants were driven out of Jordan and into Lebanon. Now, let's have a look at Lebanon.
That's beautiful. I mean, the Jordanians, who are themselves Muslims, I think it made them just a little bit smarter than the lovely Christians. I'm sorry for being that, but like loving your enemy in the Middle East is such a stupid message to live by. Ugh. They also called the Pakistanis to get rid, and I think the Pakistani prime minister is a person that had butchered the Palestinians in Jordan. And they called up the militants and I think it killed thousands. And now is the prime minister of Pakistan or something crazy like that. It's amazing.
You think after being driven out of Jordan, the Palestinian militants would have learnt their lesson and just wanted to live a peaceful life and contribute to the country which was gracious enough to host them. Don't you know they're mostly doctors? Well, they didn't. They moved on to Lebanon and caused a civil war. Lebanon was one of the most peaceful and prosperous countries in the Middle East and the only Christian majority country. I wonder if there's a link there. It was tolerant and westernized. Its capital, Beirut, was referred to as the Paris of the East, but it was actually better as there was less dog shit on the pavement and fewer...
I'm gonna push back with how liberal Lebanon really was, and also I'm gonna bring Gad Saad to tell how it felt like to be Jewish in Lebanon, and also I'm gonna bring my own stories with encountering Lebanese people because it's always the same.
French.
I think I've never met the Lebanese are they're interesting. Let me say it like that.
People. The Lebanese were proud of their successful multiculturalism, with Maronite Christians, Muslim and Druze living side by side. It was as diverse as any post-BLM advert, and it was open to people from Middle Eastern countries who came to study at its universities and work in its thriving economy. Now the country is a basket case and millions of Christians have fled. So what happened? Lebanon was about 2/3 Christian when it gained independence from France in the 1940s, but the Muslim population grew faster than the Christians and there were waves of Palestinian refugees. After one of their wars in 1948, when Arabs attack Israel, lose and then cry about it, Palestinian refugees fled to Lebanon, where they were welcomed by the Lebanese who thought they would be temporary guests. Their great-grandchildren are still there. Imagine letting your mate crash on your couch after he's had a bust-up with his missus, and a century on, his grandkids are still on your couch, and you're called a horrific monster because you're only letting them stay on the couch? That's Lebanon. And you know how I was just talking about the Palestinian militants who tried to overthrow the Jordanian government but were then kicked out in 1970? Well, they moved on to Lebanon, backed.
Of course. Where the Lebanese were really, really nice, because that's... Yeah, I wanna... Wait, let me see. Sarah Wilkison. Rebecca, loving your enemies is from God, but love does not mean what contemporary people think it means. Love means to treat righteously. Maybe, but I also think that what maybe Jesus, or I don't know who said it, like had in mind with loving your enemy. I think maybe it's somebody that you disagree with, but not like murderous people, like someone who you disagree with because of something that is not like that deadly. Maybe like disagree with in a sense that, you know, how many fingers do you use when you know, if you use 3 when you do that or 2, which is, I give that example because like the Russian Orthodox Christianity, like they killed a lot of people because they crucified themselves with 2 fingers instead of 3. So this is like, maybe that's loving your enemy, but I don't know if that it makes sense that those enemies are those people who actually believe that murdering is the right way to go about.
Armed by Saudi Arabia and other Muslim countries. They stirred up a burgeoning conflict between Christians and Muslims and precipitated a civil war in Lebanon that raged for 15 years, left hundreds of thousands dead and the exodus of 1 million people. The country has never recovered. Left-wing scientists are still baffled as to how this could happen, as it goes against the scientific formula that diversity equals strength. But you can understand why Arab countries are now a little bit wary of accepting Palestinian refugees. Here's Christian refugee Brigitte Gabriel describing what happened in Lebanon.
We were living the good time. Unfortunately, all that began to change by the 70s because of 2 things. The enlargement of the Islamic population in Lebanon, because we Christians marry one spouse until death do us part. We don't have many kids. Muslims, on the other hand, are allowed to marry up to 4 wives at a time. Now, of course, not all of them do it, but enough of them.
I'm sorry. I have to like answer. Moses in Israel, go Rebecca, can't wait to meet you tomorrow. She's awesome, you guys. Yeah, I can't wait for us to meet tomorrow. We're gonna have fun. We still need to decide what we're having for dinner though.
Do it that in our country, in Lebanon, by the 70s, the Muslims became the majority. And
I love that. Wait, somebody like Jonathan Turd, great, she's insulting Christians again. This is what scares me about some Christians. I don't know how to say it, but I didn't really like insulting Christians because I said like love your enemy. I think it's a dangerous message. I think it's a legitimate criticism when you interpret it in a way that lets you, puts you in danger. And when Christians like answer this way, whereas like everything that is about Christianity that is just sounds like a slither of criticism or disagreement, it's like they be like this reaction of like insulting Christians. I'm not insulting Christians. I didn't insult Christians. I think you're I think like when I get those messages and I get the impression that Christians would like that, like, you know, my impression when I read a comment like that I start to understand why Christians killed people who like the Orthodox Christianity, why they thought it okay to massacre people just because they do this thing with 2 fingers instead of 3. Like this is the tendency in Christianity that is kind of scary, where if you don't have like complete faith in the exact version of a certain way of Christian thinking, then then it's not love the enemy anymore. It's maybe because like these people, they are not perceived as your enemy, so you don't bother to love them. I don't know.
And once they became the majority, they started massacring the Christians and killing the Christians. I remember in 1974, we stopped traveling. We used to go spend Christmas and Easter in Beirut with the rest of my family. And we stopped traveling, and I would ask my father, why aren't we going to Beirut for Christmas this year? And my daddy would say to me, well, we just decided to stay home this year. And I couldn't understand why. And later I learned is because Muslims started setting up fly-by-night checkpoints, and they would stop Christian cars traveling. And when they would get people out of the car and look at their ID and find out that this is a Christian family traveling, because in Lebanon, our religion is written on our national ID, on your driver's license, on your passport. So when they see that this is a Christian family traveling, they would get everyone out of the car and shoot them in cold blood. So we became prisoners to our homes and our cities and our communities. And that's the reason why we stopped going anywhere. By 1975,
Okay, I'm not smiling creepily because of her tragic story. I listened to that clip already. I'm just reading your comments, and your comments some of them are hilarious. I just want to make clear that it's not like I'm laughing at the story, which I heard a lot of times already, and every time it's like it's amazing. Bridget is amazing, but your comments are so funny, you guys. I just saw copying this one. It made me, this is why I'm slaying. Moses in Israel. Rebecca is a bit intimidating, to be honest. So soft-spoken in one moment. The next she could marry away for a good coat. For all you know, she's like my mother, but I'm sorry, that made me laugh. Like, this made me smile so hard. And then I realized like we're watching a very like hardcore video at the same time. The difficulties of doing a live shows were,
that's when the war broke out, the civil war. And the war broke out because Muslims walked into a church on a Sunday morning and began shooting at Christian worshippers, and injured hundreds and killed 4 people. And that's what started out the all-out war. And it was a very difficult time for the Christians, because as the Muslims organized and now supported by the oil money flowing out of Saudi Arabia.
By the way, that's amazing to me. Like, even I had a talk with Arif, Atheist Gamer. I'm gonna read your comment in a second because it made me laugh as well. I had a talk with Arif, but apparently even the rise of like proper Islam, I mean, it is proper Islam in India, where they weren't aware, right? Like Islam in India took a lot of Hindu tradition, like incorporate a lot of Hindu tradition in it. Those who funded the pure Muslim view on education were the Saudis. Atheist Gamer, I watched this clip about history of Lebanon and tried to convince my psychiatrist that I wasn't paranoid about Islam taking over because my fears are correlated with history, but she didn't get it. It's funny. The truth is like, I don't think we should be paranoid about anything. I think if we have clear boundaries, it doesn't matter, It doesn't matter. It's like, if something is not okay, you just take care of it. That's the way if you really live by the law, if the United States kept being, the scary, harsh policing kind of country it's always been, with the scariest prisons in the world and everything like that. If the United States just kept being like that, then it would not have it wouldn't, the momentum, like they had to dismantle, how they called it, like to dismantle the police, to like they had to do that beforehand, right? They had to take away the ability to enforce law, because if you enforce law, then even if you have an influx of Muslims, doesn't mean that necessarily you're gonna get like that kind of situation. Because if you enforce law and you actually make sure that every little thing is done properly, then they have to abide the law of the country. And when you abide the law of the country, you can no longer abide the law of Islam, by the way. Remember, like Muslim law and any country's law, they contradict each other. So if you follow country's law, you're not really a Muslim anymore.
And all the Muslim countries, they wanted to basically use Lebanon as a base from which to fight Israel, kill the Jews and drive them into the sea, using Lebanese democracy and Lebanese open-mindedness and tolerance to do exactly that. And that's really when my world turned upside down and it changed. Lebanon was so multi-faith and multicultural. So we had Druze, Muslims, Christians, Protestant. The majority were Christians. We were over almost 70% Christians when we got our independence in the 40s. But because of the way Muslims multiply, you know, with the multiple wives and multiple kids, in 30 years they became.
By the way, don't be confused. This is something that a lot of people are okay. Oh, but the Muslims are doing an amazing job when it comes to multiplying. In fact, the only reason that it seems like they're doing an amazing job when they're multiplying is because they take away from someone else. It's a pyramid scheme. If the pyramid scheme takes over everywhere, it's out to collapse, and the Muslim population will collapse, but in the most brutal, awful way.
Became the majority. And when we got our independence from France and Lebanon, because we are, you know, Judeo-Christians, you know, come from Judeo-Christian culture, we're very fair. So we made sure we divided the government to make sure that Muslims have representation. So the president of the country was Christian, the prime minister was a Muslim, the prime minister, you know, the secretary of state. We had different assignments for different religions. But the Muslims became the majority. And once they became the majority, they were no longer tolerant of the people who took them in and accepted them and included them in the country. They felt they were not a part of the country. They felt they were a part of the Islamic Ummah or the Islamic nation. So when they turned against their brethren Christians who lived in the same country, and Jews, but specifically the Christians, they began massacring us in large numbers because they thought we are in power now and therefore we set the rules on how things should be. And that's really what drove the country into war. We had the problem controlled when it was only the Christians in Lebanon and the Muslims in Lebanon, but what aggravated the situation was the influx of the Palestinians out of Jordan who came to Lebanon, and Lebanon was the only country who took them in because we were the only country that accepted the third wave of Palestinian refugees, while the Muslim countries did not want them. And that's what really changed the situation. That's what tipped the scale.
The way Western leftists talk about Palestinian refugees in Lebanon is very revealing. They say they're victims of apartheid and second-class citizens who don't have the same say in politics and society as Lebanese people. We've all seen horrific images of Gazans being injured and killed, and I'm sure everyone feels sympathy for them. To be honest, the best thing for the people of Gaza would be the eradication of Hamas. Hamas are responsible for the deaths of Gazans. They kill anyone who questions them. They kill gays. They steal.
Yep, basically. There is another. I'm gonna bring Gatsad story about how inclusive and beautiful the Lebanese people are. Which one is it? I think this one.
Personal stories I may or may not have discussed.
Oh, thank you, Jax. You're amazing. Just for support late tonight. My children keeping me busy. Well, kiss them for from all of us. They give us how many people are viewing right now? 155. So kiss them 155. One from each of us. Thank you.
With you those stories in the past. When I was 5 years old, living in Lebanon, Gamal Abdel Nasser, who was the pan-Arabist Egyptian president of Egypt at the time, passed away. And at his death, there were huge demonstrations and protests, like we're seeing today all over the West, where they were lamenting and mourning his passing in Beirut, outside of my home. And the screams that you could hear were "Death to Jews." Now, we weren't Israelis, we were Lebanese. We had nothing to do with the death of an Egyptian president. Why was the reflex to say "death to Jews"? And my mother said, "Don't show your head, cower." I was a 5-year-old boy. When I was about 8 years old, the teacher said to the students in my class, get up and say what you want to be when you grow up. So one person gets up and says, I want to be a soccer player, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a policeman. A friend of mine who played soccer with me all the time, with whom I've grown up, got up and said, when I grow up, I want to be a Jew killer, to everyone's rapturous laughter and clapping. Now, what you saw with that clip with the guy saying, Dad, I killed those 10 Jews, that was the kid that was my friend in 1974, 73. So it is an endemic, genocidal, existential Jew hatred. Now, is it that every single Muslim hates Jews? Of course not. Most Muslims are lovely and
Right. I like how it just ends abruptly once the clip that I was taking ends. Is like, there's another message of him I wanted to show.
might face in my job, which
Are you guys saying anything interesting I should be answering? No, I don't see anything.
of course are serious, to what I faced when I grew up in Lebanon. And it's no surprise then that many of the staunchest defenders of Western values end up being immigrants like myself, because we have sampled from the wide buffet of possible societies, and we know that the Western experiment is not, it's an outlier, right? It's an anomaly, and therefore it typically takes people who did not grow up in a Western tradition, who've escaped the hellholes from which they've escaped, to then be able to say, hey, Westerners, don't take for granted the freedoms that you have. And so if you look at many of the, think of Ayaan Hirsi Ali, right? She can speak, with a lot of clarity and authority about some of these issues.
Yep, just cut off. Let me. I actually also have this here, Bridget. Same
robbed
message.
of my youth. So I understand what happens when people turn a blind eye to evil, thinking, it's not going to happen to me. It's all the way over there. Let them all kill each other. Well, over there is no longer contained over there. It's over here. And we must protect America.
Well, we really must. And
Coping. I liked Arif ways of wording it. Moderate Muslims are really just ignorant Muslims. Yeah, 100%. Wait, I'd like to, there is some constructive criticism here that I've noticed. Rochester 92, Rebecca, you start out with a focused subject, then it devolves into random clips and jokes. True, but this is the magic of doing a live video versus doing an actual video where I have a subject and I stick to it that I want to, I just like interacting with you guys. This is what I'm doing the lives for, to be honest. So, and to only be going, I have so many, when it comes to Lebanon, there is so much to say, because really, even from stories like Rajar, and we have the first Lebanese, war with Lebanon, and the second Lebanon war, and we have meeting Lebanese people, and then we have Tzada, the Lebanese army personnel who escaped to Israel, and we have the story of, there's so much when it comes to Lebanon, and there is also the fact that we're gonna go to war against them as well, right now. Arthur Pitt, Rebecca, need to be more focused. I mean, I don't know. To me, the important message today was to talk about how Lebanon is dead, basically. It's collapsed. There is nothing actually, yeah, going back to subject, the Lebanon has collapsed in a sense that it also high inflation, no money, They don't have electricity, they don't have fuel, they don't have anything. It's a bankrupt country. It was taken over Hezbollah. And I wanted to show like the progress, like how it's happening and how, to be honest, like Lebanon is such a good story because it shows like exactly what's going on with the West right now. And also the fact that the dangers that come from Islam had always been known, always. And Hezbollah, by the way, was built by Iran, so you have that part as well. And when it comes to the war that is going to come with Hezbollah, next war is not going to be an easy one. It's going to be pretty awful. It's going to be gruesome. It's going to be awful. But that's what happens when you don't go to war in time, to be honest. Yeah, screw you guys. I love this live stream. Yeah, me too. I'm having fun. Thanks, Michael, for support. Why would Lebanon go to war with Israel? It will lose all its territory to Israel if they do so. Because it's not Lebanon. There is, like, the thing is, like, everybody talks about, like, oh, let's talk to Lebanon. America should put leverage on it. But if we really, really acknowledged reality, then we would face the reality that it's not Lebanon, that Lebanon is, in fact, Hezbollah. And when it comes to fighting against Lebanon, it's a fight against God. They don't do it because they think they're not going to die. They do it because they think they're going to get to Jannah, that they're going to get to heaven if they die fighting for the Islamic cause, and that is jihad. This is what jihad looks like. It's not about it's not, they're willing and they're ready to sacrifice the whole of the Lebanon and the whole of the Lebanese people, as well as the Palestinians. Like, as many as have to die, it's like, that thing is, like, the interesting part is what's the cost, right? At what cost would the people be like, jihad, with all due respect to the Quran and Allah and the commandment to view as every country as Dar al-Harb, as like every country that is not under Islam is an enemy nation that is supposed to be that you're supposed to wage war against. At what cost? How big does the trauma has to be for that path to be like recalculated? Like, how many? Because for sure I can say that even if all 100% of the Palestinians die, that's like that's already calculated. This is something that they already took into consideration. So this is something this is a sacrifice they're willing to make, all of them. If all the Palestinians die, this is a sacrifice that the Arab nations, Muslim nations, they've all have decided that they are willing to take. So even if all the Palestinians die, this is a calculated risk that is already in the books. The question is also, how many deaths do the Palestinians have to experience before they stopped cooperating with the plan to eliminate them? The global Arab plan, Muslim plan, to offer them as a sacrificial goat for the sake of Allah. Like, how many of them have to die until the Palestinians themselves are like, what are we doing? We're like, some Gazans are starting to get it. Some starting to understand that there are indeed just goats. So that's the question, how many of them? But when it comes to like the numbers, when it comes to Islam, like you can consider the whole of Lebanon and the whole of the Palestinians, all the Arabs in the Levant, which includes Israel, by the way, like all the Arabs in the historical Levant area. They can all go, all of them, 100% can go for the cause. This is why, like, it's a global effort to try to understand, like, what price is high enough to Just like when it comes to Japan, Japan had a similar mindset, even if it was a little bit less, even a little bit maybe less. Like this is like they had harakiri, they had the same kind of mindset of sacrificing everything. Mhm. Oh, yeah, and yeah. So, but it took like 2 atom bombs for the Japanese to recalculate their ways. The Koreans were under occupation, and they like for a long time to also recalculate the ways. So the question is like, what price? Like at what trauma? What is the Sadagoda, like the what size of a trauma do they need to realize it's just ain't worth it, and maybe Allah is wrong? You know, that's the question. That's the only way. That's the only way to stop this war, to be honest. Is the right now they get an encouragement from the whole world because the West supports them. So the West is like gives the impression that they are fighting for a just cause, and that gives them the motivation to sacrifice themselves for basically absolutely nothing, you know. So it's a that's the dilemma. That's the question. How? At what price, right? Also, the price doesn't necessarily be has to be like lives, right? It can also be a price in a sense that uh, betrayal, right? What if like the Palestinians will finally get that they're pawns somehow, and they would switch sides, let's say, and that also might be something that like change their perception. That might be more traumatic than having all the Palestinians lost, let's say, maybe. So that's the question. That is the question. Okay, let me see if there are any questions here. It's like out of nowhere. But Evan Kadal, who are you talking about? You saw this message randomly. Mrs. Apostate, thank you it's nice to see you here. Also, somebody pointed out that that I dropped a letter in the title, that the upcoming doesn't have an N. Yeah, unfortunately, they probably need the apocalypse to realize that wrong. I don't think they need an apocalypse, but I think they need a definitive win, ideological definitive win, when they're like, okay, if we don't change, we're gonna stay losers forever and ever. Michael, thank you so much for your support, really. I think if all sides of the conflict were treated the exact same, extremely high standards as Israel is held, the war would have ended quick, I think. Israel, yes, this is part of the ideological war. They have to, like, they have to feel like the trauma, the devastation can also be on an ideological level. Because obviously nobody cares if they all die. Those protesters, right, that protest for the ceasefire and everything like that, they would themselves sacrifice all the Palestinians for their ideological causes, like the same way they're willing to sacrifice their own communities by defunding the police. They're willing to do so. So this is also part of it, right? They shouldn't have, like, they should be devastated in a sense that nobody believes in their ideology. Shauna Thornton, thank you so much for your support, Shauna. Thornton, Shauna Thornton, thank you so much. As an American, it's so disappointing to me to see what our elites are doing, supporting these people. It's like we're lining them up alongside with Hamas. So sad. Yeah, unfortunately. Thank you. Yeah, it is sad. It's like it's like it's not leadership anymore. It's more, even here in Israel, like the problem, like the difference between being a diplomat and a leader is that a leader has a vision, and like even if they have to fight the whole world, if like Moses had a vision of a better society and he had to fight his own people that tried to, if he was a diplomat, let's say, like a politician today, he would go down and say like, oh, you like praying to calves, so maybe we can compromise on it. Maybe you can continue like with that practice. Why not if it may, like all the people agree on it? No, he went against this, like, no, this is morally wrong because there shouldn't be an image to God. So like, and this is what's happening, like when this is leadership. But in a democracy, it's like when it feels like it should be, it's more like diplomacy. It's like finding solution, finding the mid ground. But sometimes there is no middle ground. Sometimes there is like there is just leadership, just, hey, this is the right, like, and then when the leaders are like facing their people and saying, hey, this is what Islam really is, hey, this is what it means to worship a calf, do you really guys want to do it? And then suddenly people are like, wait, this is not like we did that because like we were worried, but it's not because we thought about the long-term implication of having an image of God, right? Something that can be explained. Yeah, and then some minority would still be insisting that we should be able to worship a cow, whatever, a calf. And then, they are dealt with. But you'd be like, if the leaders, they were leaders, they would turn around and say, listen, it's an ideology that is problematic, and say the truth, and just say, even if it doesn't sound good. That's the real, like, this is leadership. It's also part of it. Okay, what are you guys seeing? Let me see. Mm-hmm. It's so random, like some of your comments feel like, because it's hard for me to follow everything. Yeah, context is very important. Indeed, I choose the cow as well, Pam Jones. Copin, tell us your great vision, oh Queen of I am telling you my vision. This is why I'm making all my videos for. But I'm also learning, right? Like, what's the vision? At this point, like, I think it's like a game of reversey. There are things that we cannot compromise with, and like, we cannot compromise on having a society next to us that believes that aborting, 20 years after the birth because of honor because of honor is a good practice. Like, this is something that should not exist anywhere in the world. And at that sense, like, sometimes like there is a little bit of truth when it comes to globalism as well, because we share Earth. And nowhere in the globe should it be okay to abort 20 years after birth because of convenience and we're bringing shame to the family, like in the most ridiculous manners. No, nowhere. In that sense, I am a globalist. But in other senses, I do believe that even though for Israel it's against our way of thinking to worship a calf, and when it comes to Hinduism, then this is part of their tradition. Of course, they should continue doing so and that, because it doesn't come from the same logic that the Israelites used, where there is no image of God, because if you have an image of God, then you start fighting about what God looks like. What Hinduism is so pluralistic, a lot more, the nature of the people is a lot more chill. Also, I think it's also partly because India is a rich country, and we live in the Middle East, which is a desert, which makes the conditions pretty harsh. So, like, it's harder to be chill here. It's harder because there is more to. It's always like the question of like, where do I get my next meal here is harder here than it is in India, because India is so much more rich and has so much water and everything like that versus being in the desert. So this is also difference. Shauna Thornton. Why do you think the West is so wishy-washy about Israel? What is the point? I actually talked about it on my long anti-Semitism video. My main reasoning was, there are several reasons for it, but the reason also is is because they don't want to face this reverse game, that the fact that they need to change the Islamic world. They'd rather try to keep the conflict here localized by giving Israel they don't want either side to win, because if the Muslims win, then they're gonna have to face the Islam. But if Israel wins, then to be honest, I don't understand. The problem with letting Israel win is that they're also anti-Semitic. Anti-Semitism is a really problematic thing. So they are also afraid of the Jews. They don't want the Jews to win either, because they hate the Jews. The reasoning comes from very different psychological thing. When it comes to Israel, it's basically because they don't like Jews. So they don't want Israel to win because of, there's no way around it, just because of personal pet peeves. And when it comes to, especially after they realized like the Lebanese attempt failed, the reason, like they understood that there is no Christian partner in this area, and they had to deal with the fact that the Jews are the only option, then they cannot really afford losing Israel either. Not unless they're ready to lose the progress that we've made, unless they're ready to go back and have the same situation we had in the Middle Ages, right? Going back to the way that Rome fell and like collapsed and everything went thousands of years backwards. If they're like, this is the other option, right? But the thing is that by trying to not really win, they allowed the collapse option of the West to be more and more realistic as time passed by, unfortunately. So to me, it's amazing like that, how much anti-Semitism is like, this is what's amazing about anti-Semitism, because it's always like, if you really follow it, you can see that anti-Semitism rises in a society that is striding towards committing suicide. That's the sad part. Like, this is the sad part. Like, it's not just Jew hate. Jew hate is like, it's like you hate Jews so much you're willing to commit suicide. This is how a lot of the Christians in the Middle East are. That like they're ready to go extinct if it means that they're not collaborating with Jews. This is how much they hate Jews. So it is. Anti-Semitism is a very, very interesting disease, to be honest. Ayatollah Khamenei, the West is toast. You guys, let's not toast it yet. We are strong together. We can fight back. All right, I guess this is it. Are there any last questions? You all? I had fun. talking about Lebanon. There is a lot of like, I always feel like I can talk also about the technical, like how to infiltrate Lebanon, how there like all the conflicts that we have. But sometimes I feel if you dive too much into the details, especially if we're on a live, then you lose the whole picture. So yeah, I like talking about the system more than diving into local strategies. But I think that part is also important, to be honest. But it's a mix. It's a mix. I also feel like there are a lot more channels who do that than channels who talk about like the system in general. All right, you guys. I see that I don't see any new questions, and all right. Oh, here's the last one. Are we sure Muhammad didn't die to eating gefilte fish? I mean, gefilte fish in the middle of the desert, that could be a reason, yeah. I don't know. My mom loves gefilte fish. It's not that bad. Okay, good night, everyone. Nice seeing you all. See you on Sunday. I'm gonna have infidel noodle on, so it's gonna be fun.